Well, you're going to want to sit down for this one. The United States Supreme Court has ruled against the Trump position when it relates to immigration and deportation. The Trump administration running to the aid of Florida having a new law in its books that was completely inconsistent with federal immigration law. Florida passed a law signed by Ron DeSantis that made it a crime to cross into Florida, cross its borders, and stay in the state. The only problem is it's inconsistent with the Immigration and Naturalization Act of the federal government. And we have a little thing in federal and Supreme Court jurisprudence called the Dormant Commerce Clause. See, let's do a breakout session of Legal AF Meets a TED Talk. Here's our law school class. Dormant Commerce Clause says that if the federal government regulates in a certain area, then they oust the states from regulating in that exact same subject matter of that exact same area. So once the feds decided that they were going to take over immigration policy, states can't do their own immigration policy, their own little mini immigration policy. That's been on the books for, 150 years. But that didn't stop Ron DeSantis, who could soon be your attorney general if Pam Bondi is fed into the wood chipper by right-wing MAGA media over the Jeffrey Epstein cover-up scandal. But more on that later. So here I'm going to talk about the ruling by the United States Supreme Court. It was only 2 lines, but powerful, especially since Donald Trump decided to jump into the fray by supporting Florida in that particular case. And now it's been rejected 9-0 by the United States Supreme Court. At the same time that James Utmeyer, the Attorney General for Florida, has decided he's going to get sideways with a federal judge, Judge Williams in this case, who ruled initially that this was unconstitutional, this law criminalizing immigrants under Florida law. She issued a temporary restraining order. He violated the temporary restraining order by telling all the agencies under his dominion and his control they could ignore her order. She didn't like that. She found James Utmeyer in contempt at the very same day that they filed an application to the United States Supreme Court to have Judge Williams' order that formed the basis of the contempt stayed. And that's how they lost. I'll pull it all together, I promise you, on this hot take here at the intersection of law, politics, and the defense of our democracy. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button for Legal AF. Okay, what happened? Supreme Court gets an application, comes up through Justice Thomas, because he runs all things in Florida and Georgia and the 11th Circuit. After Judge Williams ruled against Florida, found this law unconstitutional and violative of the Dormant Commerce Clause, James Utmeyer ran to the 11th Circuit. The 11th Circuit, which leans right, if you know what I mean, ruled against Florida, said, yeah, there's a whole body of federal law about immigration. You can't have your own little mini immigration criminal statute at the exact same time. Right before they ruled, Trump administration files a amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, and says, we agree with Florida, which is why we're seeing the Supreme Court, why I said at the top of the hot take, ruling against the Trump administration. Now, Utmeyer doesn't like that. So the day that he gets pulled and called on the carpet by Judge Williams, who he attacks on social media, who does that sound like? He then files an application with the United States Supreme Court for an emergency stay of Judge Williams' order, which stops prosecutors in the state of Florida from prosecuting people under SB 4C, which is this law I just told you about. Already almost 30 people have been prosecuted under this invalid, unconstitutional law. So he gets held in contempt. He files the Supreme Court ruling. And lo and behold, Justice Thomas says, I don't want to deal with it on this hot potato. I'm going to throw it to the full 9 en banc of my Supreme Court and let them decide. And a 9-0 decision comes back. The motion for emergency stay is denied. So let's move it forward. James Utmeyer is also at the hot corner of, no pun intended, of Alligator Alcatraz. What's that? Well, it's hard to tell. The Trump administration likes to tour it with their president, their fearless leader, as if he's in charge of it. I'm going to show you that clip. But then in a court filing related to the Alligator Alcatraz, the federal government told the judge that they don't run it, that it's being run by a Florida entity that is using federal funds, but they don't have anything to do with it. But then Kristi Noem over the weekend, when she's grilled, pun intended, by Kristen Welker about Alligator Alcatraz sitting in the middle of the Everglades in scorching temperatures in makeshift temps where they have over 700 people already there with no no air conditioning. She acts like she is in charge of Alligator Alcatraz and tries to sort of defend it. Let's do it in this order. Let's start with Donald Trump touring this Alligator Alcatraz, which was the brain trust of Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, and James Utmeyer, the Attorney General of Florida. Let's look at the tour.
So as the president is touring the site right now inside, this is what's happening outside. This group of protesters bringing signs like stop ICE, stating Alligator Alcatraz has got to go. We welcome immigrants. Now, Trump, we know, has long been enamored with the idea of reopening Alcatraz. And today, the governor, Ron DeSantis here, is essentially hand-delivering him Florida's version of Alcatraz, put together in a week and 1 day. And right here in the Everglades, this is located less than 50 miles west of Trump's resort in Miami. This is obviously sparking a lot of backlash from environmental groups, two of which have sued the Trump administration and also DeSantis. Also indigenous Americans who say that this threatens their sacred lands, and immigrant rights activists who are saying that this is dehumanizing, cruel, and inhumane, putting detainees here in the middle of the summer during hurricane season outside. Now, we have seen inside of the facility through footage, through a Fox interview that DeSantis did, and we did see, as DeSantis pointed out, portable water, sewage, power. He pointed to the AC units. He said that this is not inhumane. These people are going to need for nothing. He said that this is very much the same conditions where people displaced from hurricanes would be, in temporary tents.
Okay, Trump looks like he's using the imprimatur of the federal government to tour this facility, right? Okay, now let's fast forward. There is a filing that's required because an environmental group files a lawsuit against the Trump administration because nobody's done an environmental study of the impact of placing, an active 11,000 foot runway in the middle of the Florida Everglades, which is teeming with wildlife and fragile ecosystems, and is part of the water filtration and water supply for the entire state, as the Lake Okeechobee at the top of the state ultimately filters down through the Everglades. And we're talking about all sorts of wildlife that help farming and help Florida not burn up and just spontaneously combust and leave planet Earth. Okay, so the environmental group sues the Trump administration about the Alligator Alcatraz. And what do they say in their filing? We don't have much to do with it. It's not our facility. It's being run by Florida, maybe with federal funds. But look to Florida. They know all about it. And you've got, of course, the James Utmeyer taking special delight in tormenting other human beings on social media who could be dying and are certainly being subjected to torture in the facility, saying things like, next stop wherever they're from, and maybe they'll get eaten by alligators, and posting photos of the judge that found him in contempt, and all sorts of other crazy things. So you have that filing, which seems to be completely inconsistent with Kristi Noem, who hits the airwaves in an interview where she's interviewed about the Alligator Alcatraz, now housing over 700 people, soon to be 3,000 people. Before we get to the clip, let me just give you the breakdown based on the Tampa Bay Times doing some investigative reporting. 95% of the people that are there already are of Latin American descent. 1/5 are Guatemalan, 1/5 are Mexican, and 1/10 are Cuban. All right, let's go to the clip of Kristi Noem again, Ice Barbie over her skis, and not prepared for this interview. Let's run the clip.
That President Trump has taken seriously is protecting children while we're doing
couple
this.
more here, if we can get them in. Florida lawmakers visited the migrant detention center in Florida, which your administration has dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz said that the conditions there are inhumane. More than 30 people stuffed into a jail cell. She said they get their drinking water and they brush their teeth from the same place where they go to the bathroom, Madam Secretary. What do you say to these lawmakers who argue this is not humane treatment of individuals, of humans.
Well, our detention centers at the federal level are held to a higher standard than most local or state centers and even federal prisons. The standards are extremely high. Now, this is a state-run facility at Alligator Alcatraz,
but they have stuffed into a jail
They have
cell?
a contrast. Well, I've been there and I've seen these rooms that they are in. I wouldn't call them jail cells. I would call them a facility where they are held and that are secure facilities, but are held to the highest levels of what the federal government requires for detention facilities.
Democrats have called them.
Okay, so very soon I'm going to have on Legal AF the opponent to James Utmeyer when he's up for election, and we're going to ask him how he would run the legal department and be the chief law enforcement officer for Florida different than James Utmeyer. It's a position that's elected in Florida, even if the replacement for Ron DeSantis, remember, he's term limited out, so he's looking for his next job, Ron DeSantis, which is why the attorney general thing to replace Pam Bondi sort of makes sense. He was rumored to be the first choice for that position to begin with. So but in Florida, they vote for their attorney general separately, and I'll have the new candidate there, and we'll be able to ask him. I'll ask the audience to put together some questions for me to ask him in addition to it. So we have Judge Williams in Miami, upheld by the 11th Circuit, upheld by the United States Supreme Court, finding Utmeyer in contempt. Utmeyer's fevered imagination comes up with the Alligator Alcatraz, which Donald Trump's organization, his administration seems to both on one hand speak with forked tongue. One hand, they deny that they're involved with it, and on the other hand, they tore it and defend it. So which is it? We'll continue to follow it all and solve this problem of the inhumane treatment in the Everglades by the Trump administration here on Legal AF. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.